You can do this for an hour.
That's right.
What's up, everybody? It is electric. It's an electric Sunday afternoon here at Granny's Peach Tea, episode 79.
Wow.
We're almost going
79. Not as exotic as 69, but if you think about it, it's still a wild position. You know what I mean?
That's correct. I didn't think about that. That's a great catch. But yeah, thanks for joining us on a Facebook live stream. If you're joining us on YouTube, if you're joining us on Twitter, or wherever you found your podcast, we appreciate that. Hey, we got an alternative. I'm a football guy, but here's your alternative to watching Sunday football in the fall. Join us in some geeky goodness for a little while. But yeah, we got the electric boogie. If you've seen She-Hulk this week, and if you're watching this episode, I'm assuming you did, then that's our inspiration for the week. Because that's what we pick our music based on, whatever the hell we catch during the TV show that we're watching or a movie.
And I'm gonna say, if a Sunday afternoon show is just not as good for you guys as our usual time, well, hey, it's in theme because weddings appear at the most worst time you could think of, just like the Sunday episode, right? We're in line with She-Hulk.
You're right. We're just popping up out of nowhere because that's how it is. So, but yeah, we appreciate it, and we have our new segment that's on the show that apparently I wake up thinking about on Sunday mornings. Just like Jason.
I love that.
I don't know why, but Granny's Gabagoo.
All right. So let's get into it, guys. I'm on third. I just started the third season of Sopranos, and Maron, what crazy stuff. I'm gonna say this. I got second season overall. I thought was really good. I had one problem with it, one problem with Alone. I thought Big Pussy's turn happens a bit too quickly for my taste, but I guess. I mean, Vavango, what do you want to do, right? They got like 6-7 episodes, do a story arc of 23. This is the 90s. I'm going to let it go. It was satisfying to watch Puss get killed. But now I'm going to tell you where I am today, Ed. And this is a seminal moment. It's an important moment. If you've heard me talk about the show at all, just before I watched this show and I was doing my laundry, I'm watching and who shows up? Fucking Joey Pants. Joey Pants is on the program.
Uh-oh.
We're now on the trajectory where Joey Pants is going to kill this horse. I know. He's him and Big Puss were the one person, the two people I knew how they ended, because back in the 90s, Big Pussy was killed. That was the media was able to say pussy on in front of everyone, so they all calmed on that, right? Big Pussy's killed. I didn't even know who fucking Big Pussy was, but there it was. He was dead in my face. But I watched Joey Pants kill that horse, guys. Or I don't think I actually did watch it. I think they just talk about it. Whatever. I don't even remember, but I know Joey Pants and a dead horse, and here he is. Other notable things, God bless his soul, but that horrible woman that was Tony's mother's finally dead. Got to admit, hated her character, mostly because she reminds me of my mother, but also really love that actress. And I want to say that I actually do remember that at the time she had gotten sick, and that's why she was kind of sidelined. And it was kind of sad to see her go, just because the character was such a strong presence that I hated so much that when she was not in season 2, and then when she eventually does pass because the actress passed, I was kind of sad about that. So that's Granny's Gabagool for this week, guys. Thanks for joining.
So hold on a second. So last week you watched. See, you do 2 seasons this week?
Well, I watched. I watched. I've been averaging a season a week because they're pretty short.
Yeah, aren't they?
Like 9 episodes or 10 episodes, if that. Yeah.
Okay.
And so but that's what I've been doing. Like, after Finn goes to sleep, I come in here if I got no plans, and I kind of just binge that. So, nice. But I literally I'm on like episode 2 of season 3. So I literally just started it today. So I'm averaging a season a week.
That's awesome. I mean, you're not going to have to deal with the rest of us dealt with was when they took hiatuses. between seasons for uncomfortable amounts of time.
Yep.
I hated that shit. It turned a lot of people off to not wanting to come back. Because also, you, right?
Mm-hmm. That's why I never got into the show, because I hated, like, here's 3 episodes, now wait 6 months for the next 3. It's like, get the fuck out of here. I don't want to watch it like that.
Yeah, I mean, the only show that I think I cut some slack for that is Curb Your Enthusiasm. Because, I mean, Jason, we talked about it for forever, how much I love Seinfeld and stuff, and I ended up loving Curb Your Enthusiasm the same way, because the way I see it as Curb Your Enthusiasm... Do you watch Curb Your Enthusiasm or not?
I did. I watched, I never finished it. I watched maybe the first, because it ran a while, but I watched the first couple seasons after the fact, and then I watched the last season because it was the Seinfeld reunion.
Oh, no, it's still, dude, it's still going.
It is still good, because they brought it back, right?
Yeah, they brought it. Well, that's what I was getting at. They're the ones who I cut the slack for, because it's honestly, HBO just lets Larry David do whatever he wants. And it's like, if he just feels like, hey, I got another season, I mean, let's go. And that's kind of how it's announced, very nonchalantly. And every season ends where you could technically end it on that note.
Okay.
But he's just like, I like doing the shows. I'll just keep doing it. No, but you're right. There was a huge gap. But now, the last couple of years, it's been kind of consistent again.
Oh, okay.
It's also, Sopranos, we're on the edge of our seats. It's like a through lines that are with... Right. There are through lines through Curb, but not like the same. You know, you can kind of pick it up whenever you want.
Here's the thing. I'm watching this show, and the whole turn with Big Pussy happens, right? I'm going to be sitting there going, oh, my God, what's like in real time? Like, and then I got to wait months for it. Curb Your Enthusiasm, it's like, oh, did he just hire the guy who he thought was a Holocaust victim who just had a tattoo? I wonder how this is going to play out. But if I need to wait 6 months, I can live with that to wait to see how that plays out, you know?
Yeah, I'm just very much like, I see it announced on Facebook, and I'll always share it because I get excited about it. Oh, Curb's coming back for like season 11. I'm like, all right, cool. And then the night I find it in my DVR, I'm like, all right, I got a half an hour of stuff to watch, and whenever it's there, it's there, and if it's not there, it's not there. But once the season does start, I do look forward to it every week.
Yeah.
And I just laugh my ass off at it, you know, constantly, because, I mean, it's genius.
Well, it's like, because Larry David is George Costanza, and let's not pretend that George Costanza isn't not just the best character on Seinfeld, but one of the top 10 best characters of TV of all time. Let's not pretend that's the fact.
Yeah.
And this is a show written by George Costanza and acted like pretty much. So it's like, how could it not be great? How could you not love it?
It's great. I love it. JB Smoove is and when he moved in with Larry, he's my second favorite character in the show. Maybe sometimes even the first. Just the interactions with him and Larry are hilarious. Absolutely hilarious. Like, there was a time where Leon had to go on an interview. No, Larry went on an interview, and Leon's giving Larry David notes on how to go into an interview, and it's priceless. If you get a chance, check it out, because I gotta
go back. I gotta go back, because again, like, I watched first couple of seasons, then I watched that Seinfeld season. That's it. But it wasn't. It was never because I'll tell you exactly what it was. It wasn't that I didn't like it. It was that I was doing it at the time before it was streaming. That's how long ago it was. So I was getting the actual discs from Netflix. Okay. And so I watched a couple of seasons, and then I was like, I don't know if I could. Like, so many things were opening up to streaming, and then now it is streaming, and I just haven't gotten back to it. So I don't know. Maybe that's where I'll go after Sopranos.
I was gonna say maybe after Sopranos, and those seasons are really short.
Yeah,
the Curb seasons are extremely short, and the show's like a half an hour.
Although if I go Curb after Sopranos, then I am locking myself into something that I'm not sure if I'm ready to lock myself into. Because if I'm going to go 2 HBO shows, then I have to get into Game of Thrones.
Yes, I knew that's where it was going. Oh my God, dude. Please, you can also give us these updates on. You got a whole thing here. Within Granny's Peach Tea, there's Granny's Gabagoo, and then with Curb, we can mix something in there.
Figure something out.
Game of Thrones, there's tons of it.
All right. You know what? Let me get through the Sopranos. Let me see how I feel. I'm not going to make any promises, but it's a high probability that that's how this is going to shake out, because I always do love to have something to obsessively watch at the end of the night to shut my brain off.
Yeah, so, I mean, those are... but I don't know. I think Game of Thrones, you might start getting on the edge of your seat. You don't want to shut your brain off. I think you might get, like drawn in. Like, really drawn into that.
Did I ever tell you why I didn't watch it? Game of Thrones. Did I ever tell you my ultimate reason why I never went to it?
This is going to be something crazy. I have a feeling. Go ahead.
It always is. It always is. So for one, I always hate when people tell me I got to watch stuff all the time, like constantly. It makes me not want to do it. But even worse, so you know Pete, right?
Yeah.
So we grew up together as a friend of ours, and he was someone that anytime I told him to watch something, he would do this all the time. He'd go, and he'd find the stupidest reason. He'd be like, so I one time told him to watch Bones, right? And he's like, I don't know, like the fake Deschanel, and he had this whole thing. He'd never seen it, right? And TV's Angel just pretending he's still on Buffy, and I'm like, dude, what are you talking about? Whatever. Yeah. Then you flash forward 3-4 years later. It's like, dude, I just found this great show, Bones. You ever heard of it? And I'm like, I'll fucking punch you in the face, my dude. So when he specifically came to me and said, you got to watch Game of Thrones, I went, I don't know, man. Dragons aren't my thing. And he's like, but they haven't had dragons. And I'm like, well, that makes it even worse. And so he kept trying to push it. And at one point, the way he pushed it was, I mean, you got Peter Dinklage. It's like, he's a dwarf and he's fucking all the time. He's all sex. And I went, yeah, I could get that on certain places of the internet for free. And so, like, I think it was the fact that I am just a stubborn, miserable bastard. I put it in my head, I'm never going to watch this show out of spite for my best friend.
Rick is always telling me about shows. Steve, like, everyone is telling me about shows. And my whole thing is just like, dude, now with Granny's PhD, I'm just like, we cover a lot of stuff, and I'm watching sports and doing God knows what. Like, I don't have time. I'm very much like that meme that was shared out recently, and I think I shared it on our Facebook page. Was in Winter Soldier, I am totally Cap when fucking Falcon is going ahead and Sam Wilson is telling him, I'll put it on the list.
Yeah,
I'll put it on the list. Yeah, okay. But Steve Rogers would actually watch it. I'm just like, yeah, I don't know. We'll get to it someday.
See, my thing about TV shows, when I say I'll put it on the list, it's the same commitment I'm making when I buy a book. If I live long enough, I will get to it. But it all depends on how long I live.
That's a fair point.
If I live for the next 100 years, I'll get to it all.
The day will come.
Right.
It might be 20 years from now, but the day will come when I will watch this or I will read this.
Exactly. But that day isn't today, nor is it going to be tomorrow.
And I legitimately don't do it because I am like what you mentioned with Pete. Like, I'm not trying to do that. I'm just like, if I'm genuinely interested, like Reacher, there's a show on Prime Video now, which has Hawk from Titans, who I loved in Titans. Yeah, and I like the first Jack Reacher movie that Tom Cruise did. The second one is awful. It is horrendous. And I like that idea. And I've heard great things about the show, but I'm like, get to it eventually. I don't know. I mean, there's like Game On, there's She-Hulk, there's Andor. We have it's a golden age of TV, man.
It's so much. Like, that's the thing. And I started to feel this. I'll tell you when I started to feel this. When Netflix first opened up their streaming. This before the streaming wars happened. So imagine how I feel now. But I remember having choice fatigue. Like, I'm used to like, okay, what can I narrow down that would be acceptable for me to watch right now on cable, right? Because there's no choice there. But once you can stream, it's like, wait, 10 of my favorite things are on here. But then what happens is I go and I look and I go, while I decide, I'll just, I don't know, watch this episode of Doctor Who again, or I'll watch this episode of Star Trek again. I get choice fatigue.
I know, I agree. And then like at night, like I usually try to go to sleep around like 11 o'clock or so, and Seinfeld is on WPIX locally. Yep. So I'm like, I'm gonna watch something. Then it's the choice. The second I realize it's 11 o'clock, I'm like, I'm watching the next 2 episodes of Seinfeld, and then I'll hopefully fall asleep by the end of it.
That's it. And that's why I love this show, doing this show, because because if I didn't do this show, I likely wouldn't be on top of this stuff as I am. I would do what I always would, wait till the end, watch it all together, just because of like, all right, well, I've got so much to watch, I've got so many choices, but this makes me direct it, right? I can I'll do it with Star Wars, I'll do it with my other fandoms, but I have to be on top of this, and I kind of like that. I like having to do it.
Yeah, because I used to with the CW shows, I was horrible with that at one point. Like, Angie was like, come on, let's watch Flash. Let's watch this. And I'm just like, yeah. Meanwhile, there's like 8 episodes by the time I get to it. And now I'm like feeling like I have to cram them all in so I can know what's going on.
Right, exactly.
So. All right. Well, that was fun. let's
fun.
let's kick it off. Let's get
All
into
right.
our two. We only got two shows, so we got kind of some light content this week.
Yeah.
Speaking of CW shows, we got Stargirl season 3, episode 4. And Jason, what do we got for Stargirl this week?
I mean, this is again a solid episode. Really enjoyed it. It furthers the whole theme of redemption. Who's worth redemption? What does redemption look like? So of course we call this Starman Lives. No, I don't think any of us thought he was dead.
No.
And Dr. McNider comes back, and it's cool. It's actually really cool. It's the first time we see Starman interacting with a former teammate, right? Because Stripesy he never considered Stripesy his equal. He was the sidekick.
Yeah.
And we've seen that in this season. But watching him with McNider, who's checking him out, and they're having a conversation, and McNider he asks him, "Do you ever miss it?" And McNider has this great moment where he goes, "No, I find I'm older and I don't want to do this anymore. And I find way more appreciation and joy in training the new people, giving this to Beth and teaching her how to do it and sort of passing it on," which puts in Sylvester's head. And I think I've said this is where we're going throughout. Like, yeah. I think by the end of this, he's giving up Starman. Like, he's not going to be touching that staff. He's going to completely give the mantle over to Courtney. And I think that starts here, because he brings it up later. Like, I don't know, maybe I shouldn't even be here. So I really like that. We find out the reason he's alive is because the cosmic staff imbued him with the cosmic power. So he's like an extension of the staff. He can't actually die, which I think is interesting.
Yeah, because we didn't know. We were really kind of like speculating, because they only gave us, the staff brought him back. But now it's very interesting that he's getting more of that, and that's how he survived his attacker last week. That has done whatever they've done, because they're doing a good job on keeping us. Because I genuinely don't know who the hell is attacking everybody and doing this whole thing. But what I found really interesting is, since we're in such an era, and we've been in an era where characters are, and the mainstream now is, mainstream fans are learning that all these mantles are being passed on. There isn't just one,
yes.
And it's happening everywhere. Some people whine about it. Some people understand it because they've actually picked up some comics before. And this is just, I thought it was interesting that they took a more in-depth look between McNider and looking at what Starman is dealing with, because he's also like he seems to be more accepting passing on his mantle, but he's also like, what the hell am I going to do after that? Right. And we don't really get to hear a lot of that. It's just kind of like, oh yeah, you passed on your mantle, so whatever. And I like the fact they took some time to dive into that a little.
Yeah, no, I really do too. And I think that's the charm, and that's the intelligence of this show. Is it? And we talked about it in season 1, right? When we were talking about season 1, like at the end of that season 1, the reveal is the evil people doing evil things were doing it to try to create utopia, right? This show is really good at taking a concept and really making it real without making it dark. Mm-hmm. Because in reality, if you had a league of villains like this, no one wakes up. Even the worst people in the world don't wake up and say, "I'm the villain. I'm going to do villainous things." They always have their own motivation, right? Yeah. And that's what that first season explored. And I like that this season is exploring, well, what does it mean for the person handing the mantle over? Like, as you said, we only ever see, like, here is the Iron Man helmet and suit. Okay, well, then what does Tony Stark, the human being, do after that if he doesn't just go and die, And now we've set up Starman Sylvester. Well, he can't just go and die, right? Because he's kind of like impervious at this point. And he's getting to a point of passing on the mantle. And he doesn't know who he is. And it's exploring this great, like, everyone else in the JLA, they were someone outside of their character. They were doctors, professionals, scientists. And his thing is, he was no one outside of Starman. And they kind of dive into a bit of his abusive history, like as a kid, right? He talks a little bit about his home life and stuff. So I think it's just top-notch psychological work into, like, these things, these tropes in comics we take advantage of and don't actually consider what it would look like in real life.
Well said. Yeah, no, they are taking a good look at that. And I don't know, and Joe McHale does a great job. I mean, he's actually been given like a lot to work with there, and you usually see him as like just a comedic guy who's just a wise ass and stuff like that, kind of like how Vince Vaughn was at one point. But
right,
now he's actually like getting to show some more of his acting chops, and I'm pretty impressed by it.
Yeah, no, I'm very impressed. I've always liked him. I liked him a lot in Community, but he's really showing acting chops that he wasn't able to before. And I really hope that this leads to like kind of a serious career for him, because in this, like he's not playing, he's not joking, he's a serious character, and I think he's really good at it. I'd like to see him expand his range in his career.
Yeah, because I thought that Starman was just going to be forgotten about, and he was just going to be portrayed as like an asshole that kind of like treated Stripesy like shit, and that was going to be the last we were going to see. Oh, and then he died. But now like they're taking the time to like really do so much more with him. I think that's pretty cool.
No, it's awesome. And I think it's awesome too that they harken back to those moments of him treating Stripesy like shit. We've seen it just just not this episode, but the episode before, when he's like, "You're my, sidekick," and that's how it is. And so I like that they took the character, they took what we saw of the character, and then they fleshed it out to a real person. And in a show, and I want to point out, in a comic book based CW show, that's amazing. Like that's real attention to character and detail and writing, and and I think that's what I appreciate about the show. It's not all spectacle. Like the Flash at times was great, but at times it's also spectacle. And a lot of could be said about those shows that were on. Like some were good, some were not. A lot of it was superhero spectacle, and this is kind of like there's some of that, but it's only in the service of exploring the reality of what it would be like to be in this situation. And again, I just cannot say enough good things about this show.
Yeah, and anyone who, if you haven't given the show a chance because it's a CW show, or because we say it a lot here, and I just continue to stress that Stargirl, that they get the Blue Valley vibe from like the trailers and stuff like that, and the commercials, where it's just like, oh, hunky dory, and like there's so much more to the show if you give it a shot, that I can't imagine any like fan of this genre can possibly not like this. I don't know. It's way more than I ever thought it was going to be. That's
same.
For sure.
Same. I would not have watched it if it wasn't for this show, because of exactly what you said, like the Blue Valley vibes. And I was like, I don't know, this just seems weird to me. But like, so that's the thing. If you're in that position, like, I don't know, this seems weird, I don't know if I'd like it, but you like stuff like this, I'd give it a shot. Two things. We've got two things before we move on, because there are two other important reveals. I have it written there because I forget the guy's name, but Iceman's kid. I know his name isn't Iceman. What is he? Icicle, Ice Dirk, like
yeah, it's Icicle. That was his father's name.
That's it. Yeah.
And yeah, his son, I can never remember this dude's name.
I don't remember his name either. But we see him training with his grandmothers and grandfather, who we know were part of the whole plot and are evil. So I also like the fact that it's not just passing the mantle to the good guys. The bad guys are also passing the mantle. The grandparents are like, okay, our son's dead. The work still needs to be done. Let's pass this mantle and train up our grandson. So I really like that. And then they reveal at the end who the big villain is. And I'm kind of liking this. And I don't know if we called it last week, but I definitely have been suspecting it. But it's Dragon King is back. And, well, we never saw the body, guys.
So I want to ask you about that, though.
Uh-huh.
And I don't know if this is me over speculating it. So they show Dragon King's daughter in the chair, and she's got like the shoulder of the skin, because the whole thing is Beth finds this evidence through the goggles at the crime scene that shows, and it matches Dragon King's DNA, and that's why they track it back to him. They think they're all speculating he's back, and is his daughter working with him or not, because she's trying to be part of the JSA and turn over a new leaf, and like they mentioned, like second chances and stuff. But then I kind of feel like they threw us that quick curveball of her, because she's been experimented on a bunch, but yet she might have the same DNA as him, and that's why I think they're trying to get the viewers to at least be like, oh well, it might actually be her. She might be really the villain. Right. So do you think it's her, or do you think it is Dragon King is back?
So I've been giving a lot of thought to this, and if I'm wrong, I'm wrong, but I 100% think Dragon King is back, and here's why. Right? Because this show is great at misdirect. Yeah. This show is going to want us to speculate, and they've given us enough clues, right? Like either Dragon King is back and he's working with Cindy, or Cindy's working with him, or Cindy is Dragon King. But the theme that I believe that they're operating on is redemption. Who gets redeemed? How that happens? Who deserves it? What does it mean, right?
Mhm.
And if that is your theme, and as smart as this show is in its writing, I think having Dragon King come back, what's the one and only way that even the Wildcat is, and Minuteman are going to believe, or Our Man are going to believe that Cindy is really reformed, and that is if she genuinely helps them destroy her or end her father's plan. So that's what I think is being set up. I think they're setting up the Cindy redemption arc, and I think all of the shady stuff with her having the gambler's laptop and stuff, because she's the one who leaked a lot of this stuff to, like, anonymously to Beth through the goggles. So I think everything Cindy is doing is trying to prove herself, but she's a villain who knows she's not trusted, so she's doing it like in a shady way. And I think that this whole arc is going to be she needs to help end her father to prove that she is JSA material. And if it gets picked up for season 4, we start with she's not a villain, she's an actual member. That's where I think this is going.
I'm with you. I agree. I just wanted to throw it out there just to see where it's at with that. But yeah, I agree with you. I think it would be kind of weird if they made her the next grand villain, because they're almost like putting her back on the course of what we all thought was going to happen last season.
Right. And what was happening, like, she was the main villain until Eclipso fucked her over. But and I think the reason that the show has given us to doubt that she's the real villain is, and I forgot about this, but Courtney has this moment where she says, "No, it was in her memory. She doesn't love her father. Her father treated her like garbage, like he was abusive." Like, I'm paraphrasing, but I forgot that why she is so in Cindy's corner is that she was in her head. She saw some of her memories. And I think, for Cindy to wind up being the bad guy makes Stargirl Courtney, the leader of the group, look foolish. And I also think they're not going to do that. Like, if Courtney's backing her and all this stuff is there, I think that's the trajectory of this season.
Yeah, I agree. The two things I wanted to point out too was, so we also, Courtney and Icicle Jr. over there finally have their big first kiss moment, which they kept on going away from, because he does this like weird throughout the episode. He's like this, he has this ice that he creates and stuff in these rooms where there's like snow everywhere and stuff, and he's about him correcting his power, and he doesn't know, he doesn't want to hurt her, and he thinks he could. Right. And obviously she's resisting saying the words, because like, well, I mean, I can hurt me. Fucking Stargirl, like, what the hell?
Yeah.
Yeah, calm down there, Junior. Like, it's not really gonna happen. So you get that, because they were like toying with that for like a season and a half and stuff. And then the other thing is, Pat makes Starman a new suit.
Oh,
makes Sylvester a new suit, and they're gonna go and do the whole thing and everything like that. But then at the end, though, him and Pat have a nice moment where he's just like, "Dude, let's just be a mentor. Let's pass on our mantles. Just join me in being another mentor." Maybe he gives up Starman, and maybe he goes under another moniker. And I don't know. Or like you said, maybe he retires and finds his own thing. I don't know. I don't know much about the actual comic history of Starman. Yeah. So to me, it's fun to be wide open and not really know.
No, for sure. And that's the thing. They've left, by making Sylvester himself blessed with the cosmic power, they've opened it up for him to be his own superhero somewhere else without the staff. So, they've given him the option to pass the mantle and still remain a superhero. I personally would like to see them explore what it looks, even if Joel McHale leaves, because I'm sure that the plan is not him to become a series regular if it keeps running after the third season. But and I keep saying if, because of the whole shakeup with WB and
I agree. It would be a shame. I would be pissed if this. I would be pissed
too. Like, I would, out of all the CW shows on right now, with maybe the exception of Superman and Lois, because I think I like them both the same. Like, this is the one I want to see, but also Superman and Lois is in no danger. Like, that's actually the one that's 100% safe, because that has been gotten such buzz and been doing so well. So, I'm just really hoping they continue this, because they're doing such good stuff. But if they do, I certainly would like to see Sylvester kind of go off and find who he is as Sylvester and not Starman, because that's the whole point. He knows who he is as a superhero. He doesn't know who he is as a human being.
You can be Moon Man. Stargirl and Moon Man. I don't know. That's a terrible name, though. Definitely don't use that ever. Moon Knight is so much cooler.
It is, but it's taken, unfortunately.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so let's go ahead and pretty much our feature of the week is She-Hulk Attorney at Law episode 6. So I found it funny that like I didn't watch this show actually until it was later in the day on because I try to like watch it immediately before I scroll on Twitter or Facebook and get any kind of spoiler. But I did see there was people like upset that Murdoch didn't appear because where we left last episode. But I actually like the fact that this show seems to be in Marvel's anticipating and they're playing with the whole online outrage, the stupid outrage that they're having, and I think it's hilarious because when Jen is like, you know something, I know what you're thinking, but guess what? This is a self-contained wedding episode.
Yes.
It was almost like they anticipated the people losing their shit over it, and they were 100% correct.
I was actually going to ask you this, Ed, because I don't know this, but you might. Mm-hmm. How far, like, when did they film all of this?
My guess has got to be, was it late last year?
Okay. So they literally know their audience so well that at every step of the way have been able to predict how certain people in the fandom will react so they could troll them from the past.
Yes. That's correct.
Because like they're this and then, something that comes up later when they go on that anti-She-Hulk site, like I'm like, that's Twitter. That's, that's whatever other ridiculous social media account where people go on and bitch about this show. And it's like, they like how, I mean, I don't know how did they know? Well, because they've been doing this a long time and people are people, but like, I just am so astounded by how well they predicted what people were going to say that they were able to respond to it before it was said.
Yeah. And it's now you could also look at it as, does that portion of the fan base there, are they just that predictable at this point?
I think so. I think that's part of it.
Is. Yeah. So there are two. I'll put it in terms because I feel like I want to talk about this show now in the terms that the show talks about itself. So because it's very meta, very self-referential. You got the A plot and the B plot.
Yes.
So the A plot usually revolves around Jen, obviously, because this show is She-Hulk. So in the A plot, she goes ahead and she's invited by a random person and then invites her to a wedding, be a bridesmaid and everything like that, and go ahead and come join us. Someone who she hasn't spoken to a while but feels obligated to be part of the wedding party, which we all have been there. We've all been invited to weddings, and sometimes you go because you feel obligated. Sometimes you're like, no, I genuinely know this person on a regular, so that's fine. But Jen goes because she kind of feels obligated to go. And
they, by the way, they treat her, the bride and the other bridesmaids treat her like shit. And I did not understand why.
I don't know because so the bride, the way that they paint the bride in this episode was, I found it funny because it's almost like, yeah, we invited you, but you're going to kind of like actually do the bridesmaids' work while we're all kind of like drinking and doing whatever and blah, blah, blah. And she gets kind of like shit on for that. And I don't fully know the reason for it, but I almost just feel like it was just a trope within the group.
Right.
That they were just like, oh yeah, we're going to be this. And she also acts because Jen shows up as She-Hulk.
Which is great.
She gets all the attention, and the bride literally says, it's my day. Like, can you not be She-Hulk? And, Jen's been dealing with some interesting stuff over the course of the last few episodes of her battling with her alter ego. And almost kind of like maybe not an alter ego, like as one.
Right. Like, that's the thing. I think her journey is realizing that these two different looking versions of herself are both versions of herself. And I think that's what last week's episode was about the name and her actually, because she doesn't just fight for the name because of the job. She actually does care a little bit. She is starting to warm up, and she has a moment when she gets there and has that whole conversation with the bride where she does break the fourth wall, which has grown on me a lot. I think they use it very well. Yeah. But she looks and she's like, of course it's the one time I want to come as She-Hulk. Of course it's the one time I want to be impressive, because again, Jennifer doesn't feel that she is impressive. She has to be this other person. And I think she's toying with the idea of, well, this is a part of me. I can use this. it doesn't have. It could be an extension of me, not a different person.
Yeah, and the bridesmaids are all fawning over her when she shows up. Like, oh, I think one of them literally says, "Even your ass looks great now," and all of this other stuff. And she's wearing the clothes like that were made for her the week before, and apparently some of it was just like regular. And they do tease her She-Hulk superhero outfit, but they don't show it yet because I think they're just waiting on that for her to like really break into action. Even like Tim was talking about last week, like her to do like true She-Hulk things, like battling the villain who. You alluded to a little bit, and I wanted to talk about that as part of the A plot here is intelligentsia. That's thrown out there. And honestly, I didn't realize this until I had done a little bit of reading to it. So intelligentsia is a super villain group in the comics, which MODOK is a part of. Ooh. And so is the leader. And there's a lot to it. And
so maybe that's why we're getting the leader in New World Order, because it's more intelligentsia than just the leader. That's really. I'm sorry, I jumped. You were going.
No, Jason, go with it. No, it's fine. We can share the same brain with it because that's literally it's fine.
Because it literally,
what I'm saying, it all makes sense now.
Yeah. As you were saying that, my brain clicked, and I went, because you remember, I think I said it on here, and I said it to you, and I said it to Walter at work, because him and I are always talking about this. Like. The leader feels like a weird choice for your first Falcon America. And that's not disrespectful. It's just when you hear Captain America, you think original. Yes. I just want to make clear what I'm talking about. But, it felt weird to me that you're not going with like a classic Captain / Falcon America villain from the comic, and you're going with a Hulk villain. But now this makes a little more sense, right? This is because intelligentsia is kind of like Hydra, right? Like it in the sense that it's invasive and it's more of a systematic thing.
So it is. And then they also, like you mentioned, they make it like it's a site. Like it's like the whining babies of the fandom, that portion of the fandom that we talk about is there because they show there's like kill She-Hulk, cancel her, this and that, blah, blah, blah. And that's the site that they use, but it can't be a coincidence that we're getting all these villains that are part of intelligentsia.
No.
So there is that. And also, big thing, intelligentsia was mentioned in Age of Ultron. Because the third member of intelligentsia is Ulysses Klaue, who is dead in the MCU, but he's mentioned. So there's a part in Age of Ultron where they're looking at like a report or like a bio on Ulysses Klaue, and it says former member of intelligentsia.
That's insane that they just like set this stuff up.
It's nuts. When I looked into this, I'm like, holy shit. This is why in Marvel we trust. Because they just like pulled that retroactively out of their asses.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Like, they're so good at setting these things up. And look, sometimes they drop wires, but like also it's at this point, because look, Marvel has the MCU is a shelf life. We've all said that. Eventually, like the Western, everyone's gonna okay, we've done everything we can do here. Let's move on. Mm-hmm. But like I Marvel and the MCU is like me with books and media. If they live long enough, it will all make sense and be covered up, like, and so that's the thing is, so what at this point we talked about the leader was a loose thread. Well, now we're a decade later, and they're tying that loose thread up. So it's like, I don't know, is there a such thing as a loose thread until the MCU is done? Yeah, I think that's my new question.
I think that's a fair point, and I'm going to say is that I think you're right. There are no loose threads because they're willing to go back and pick them up and do something really cool with them. And then right now, like, we have our minds blown. That is just like, oh, wait, they're tying it. It's all connected. That was their old hashtag, but Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. was on. I was like, it's all connected. And it legitimately is. Like, it's for real. So, yeah, so they pretty much go ahead and that's this version of intelligentsia that we're dealing with. And it also appears that there's also on there someone called Hulk King, with like a little crown emoji there, who seems to be the person that, at least they're alluding to, that might be behind this whole intelligentsia, at least right now, maybe a member that's behind what we see in this episode, because they do go back to a few episodes ago when she gets jumped and the people are trying to get her blood and get her whole thing. Which
the wrecking crew.
The wrecking
trying to
crew.
Get her blood.
Yeah, the wrecking crew's working for this. Maybe they're a part of intelligentsia, but that's where it seems like this is all tying into, which I thought was cool, because as much as we're enjoying the sitcom format of She-Hulk Attorney at Law, we also were this is a Marvel show also.
Yeah.
So there has to be a big bad and a main villain and a whole through line, and it seems like that's starting to come to the forefront now.
Yeah, no, and I'm really appreciating that as well, because I'm with you. I'm enjoying these one-offs. Well, not one-offs; they're all connected. But I was worried because every one of these, like the first, I'd say that because the first four, the first four had a prominent, like, hey, the Hulk. Hey, you remember Abomination? Hey,
Yeah.
here's Wong. Here's Wong again. And even last episode, it was, here's hey. The Daredevil tease, right? But I'm always worried, like, can this show, if it wasn't for these teases and these things, would I like the show as much? But, like, yes, intelligentsia is a big thing, but not as big as I would say what we've gotten. It's not something that I would say the episode hinged on, or even every fan would have gotten, whereas this the other stuff every fan would have gotten. So my worry about, can this show stand on its own without leaning on other things, but this episode did. I don't think this episode leaned on anything.
No, not at all.
And I think that was the point, right? It's the standalone, it's the wedding, it's the one that goes. They tell us that, and I was happy to see that it was able to stand on its own, not sort of falling back on other Marvel things.
Great. But then when Jen is at this wedding, she meets this dude who, like, she seems to genuinely like her as Jen. And I thought of you when you said that, because we're all kind of like,
right.
Listen, everyone keeps shitting on her, but attractive woman, like, just seems like cool. Like, what are we talking about here?
Stop! I have an incredible crush on Jen, not She-Hulk. Jen. I mean, Jesus, she's an attractive woman. She's smart. She's funny.
Yeah.
She probably drinks more than I do. I mean, who the hell? I mean. But I was so happy to actually see someone hitting on her and not like, hey, can you turn into She-Hulk and being creepy? Like, and he was charming. Like, what did you expect to do here? Well, did you get a +1? Nah, I didn't. Whatever. My plan was just to come up to an attractive woman eating candy nuts, and there she is eating candy. Like, I really liked that.
Listen, the guy had game.
He did.
He did. I'm like, listen, bravo, my friend, because you're doing a nice job right here. So, having said that, Angie threw this idea out to me. I did not. So I'll give her kudos on that. Do we think he's with intelligentsia?
Oh, I hope not. He might be,
but
I hope not.
But I was like, man, Angie, that's a really, like, devious idea right there. Like, damn, like, it's funny. Me and you were kind of like, damn, all right, it's cool. It's happy. Jen's getting her moment. Meanwhile, my wife is the one who's like, I don't know, man. Like, is he behind? Is he mischievous now and trying to, like, really fuck her over? Give her a break, man.
Oh, that's hysterical. Well, I think for me, I was like, the reason that didn't dawn on me, because I'm like, come on, about fucking time. If I were at this wedding, I'd be pushing that guy to the side.
For sure.
Like, it's about time. But yeah, she's right. This might be setting up for something else. And I mean, look, it would be interesting story-wise, but character-wise for Jen, I don't think she can handle that. Just another blow to her ego, another person who just wants her as She-Hulk.
Yeah, that would be messed up. But I'm not gonna absolutely dismiss it. It would be something, but it'd be almost like Peter. It would be like Peter Parker stuff that goes on here, like the Parker look, where he constantly gets shit on from every angle.
Yes.
And that's how we felt like Thor has gotten it in the MCU, where it's just like, dude, when is enough for this guy?
Can we get a break, please? Can these guys have a timeout from misery?
Yeah, come on. But another big thing happens where Titania also shows up to this wedding and plays nice at first because she knows that she's invited. But then, of course, she's just like, it's just pushing Jen. It was like when Jen is drunk, which I found interesting because she's going ahead and pushing Jen around and wants to fight her. And previously, Jen jumped to the gun, was like, "You're only here to fuck with me." And she's like, "No, I'm not. I'm just here. What are you talking about? You're crazy." And then eventually she reveals, "No, I'm here to fucking kick your ass." And that's kind of what it is.
I said it wasn't over. Don't you remember that? It's
yeah.
So that was funny.
But what I found out, and I don't think this is, I'm pretty sure they're going to set this up for something, is the fact that she has trouble changing because she can change on command. She has trouble changing when she's drunk, apparently.
Yes. Yep. Because as She-Hulk, she doesn't get drunk because of metabolism, but they've set up that Jen gets drunk, and if she doesn't stay in She-Hulk form, Jen gets the hangover from She-Hulk's drinking. They established that. So I think it's super interesting that they've now put another layer that it's hard for her to change. And I wonder, like, how many episodes we got left? 2 or 3?
This is 6. I think it's supposed to be 9. I think we only got 3 episodes left.
Okay, 3 episodes left. So I'm curious if they're going to introduce, like, in this season, or I'm assuming it'll get a second season, like if there's going to be a drinking problem or something, because she does drink a lot. She's a big partier. That is part of She-Hulk's thing in the comic, of her party drinking, right? And so they're taking great pains to establish the rules of the transformation and how drinking and being drunk works. I wonder if they're setting up for a more serious kind of, exploitation of alcohol, like we get in the Tony Stark run, Demon in a Bottle,
Yeah, correct. Or, though, because She-Hulk is usually She-Hulk in the comics. It's mostly just She-Hulk. Like, she just kind of, like, is. I do wonder if that's where they're heading with all this, that all of this is going to add up to her being like, I'm She-Hulk, and that's it. This is just going to be me. I'm going to go party drinking. I won't have to worry about a hangover. I won't have to worry about all of this. Like, maybe I kind of just need to be on guard 24/7. I don't know. I mean, I'm just throwing it out there. It's a possibility, but I also think that might not look great for the whole Jen thing that we were just talking about. It's like, she kind of like pushes that to the side. I don't know.
I think, like, it makes sense in the comic for her just to be She-Hulk, because we're not doing, like, unless we're going out specifically with the task of doing social commentary, heavy lifting, which they do have done in comics forever. I mean, even if it's not successful, let's remember the episode the run, or the book where Lois Lane becomes black, and and that was supposed to be a groundbreaking, like, hey, let's look at it the other side. And now it doesn't age so well, but the whole point is like, I think television shows and movies have more responsibility to do moral heavy lifting than comic books do. And I think if the end goal, and this was a good thing in the show's eyes, was Jen decides to just be She-Hulk and sort of ignore what they have set up in that character as who she perceives herself to be. Because we talked about this, right? She's Jen, and She-Hulk is how everyone wants her to be.
Yeah.
Right? And so if she retreats into the fantasy of She-Hulk, and that is lauded as a good thing, and isn't like the struggle of season 2 to get out of that, then I would have a problem with it, to be honest with you, because it sends a lot of bad messages. And I think I don't think there's anything wrong with Jen Walters, the character, and to end this season with, well, now I'm just going to be She-Hulk forever, and we're all happy about that, and that's good, serves the action part of these movies, but it doesn't serve the character sort of psychological stuff, which is part of what I come to these things for. It's not always huge, doesn't even exist in Thor: Love and Thunder, but when it does exist, that's what I come for, and it is here. So I'm hoping they don't go that route, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah, or they do the typical, well, at least at one point it was a trope where in comic book movies where at the end of the first movie, the person's so happy to be the hero, and they're like, all right, let's go, let's do this. And then in the sequel, like Spider-Man 2, it's about him like, I lost my powers.
Right.
I'm depowered now. I'm going away from it and stuff. And then they learn like to be both, or whatever they're gonna take this. But
that's what I'm hoping. I hope because at this point, like, we're locked into what's going on. I don't think we're getting anything too crazy, like, plot wise, from here on in. We're setting the next thing up, but I hope in season 2, I do hope it's what you said. Like, she ends going, okay, I'm the hero, and then that second season is her actually coming to terms with that means and realizing that their balance needs to be struck, which, as you said, that's Spider-Man 2. It's why it's such a great movie.
So that's pretty much like Jen's thing throughout this episode. And then we get the B plot, which is Mr. Immortal. So Mr. Immortal shows up, and he's a character who, in the comic books, apparently, by the way, was a founding member of an Avengers team.
What?
As well. Yes.
Was he a good guy?
Yes, apparently he was. He formed his own smaller Avengers team. Where I'm pretty sure it was. I'm sorry. I just want to make sure that I don't get it incorrect. It is the Great Lakes Avengers.
Wait a minute.
It's like
So
a
the whole
Midwestern
time,
Avengers thing.
so the whole time, I've been shitting on the West Coast Avengers for being the most inferior Avengers. When the Salt Lake Avengers are on the books, Rick, if you're watching, you have my heartfelt apology for shitting on your favorite team because I didn't know the Salt Lake Avengers existed.
Well, and the interesting thing is that this Avengers team is a spinoff of the West Coast Avengers.
Of course it is. Of course it is. Yes, of course it is. I feel a
So
bit vindicated, but I still apologize.
Yeah, so Mr. Immortal, pretty much his thing is like, yes, he's immortal, but he dies. And he goes ahead and he has this whole court case because he's going to the firm to be defended. And it was just like, well, you know, I have all these ex-wives, and I think there's actually like an ex-husband is one of
There's
them.
an ex-husband, yes, there is.
And he gets bored and he fakes it. He pretty much kills himself, whatever way he's going to die to get out of it. But then they all line up and they were like, listen, we've all found out all your shit, which is what they stumble upon with Intelligentsia. And that's how they get some of their information there about him. And that's where they have this entire court case with Mr. Immortal trying to figure out and to handle his whole thing, which is an extremely funny subplot. And he goes at it and literally throws himself out the window at one point.
I love that because it was the lawyer and the assistant lawyer. I don't remember anyone's names except for Jen and She-Hulk, but and Titania. Those are the only two names I remember. But I love when they're like, when he's like, you're supposed to be nice to me. And they're like, no, we're supposed to defend you, and we are, but we're judging you because you are wrong. And they get into it, and he just gets up very nonchalantly, walks over to the window, and dives out. And I think it's the assistant who goes, now I know how all of his ex-wives feel.
Yeah. And I want to ask you something too, is that as I like The Simpsons, but I know you're a much larger, bigger Simpsons fan than I am. Did you think of that moment in The Simpsons where the PTA meeting and the guy jumps out the window and it kind of jumps back in?
Oh yeah. Yep.
I always flash back to it. It's like the PTA is disbanded or something like that. Ah! Oh no, they're back. Oh, okay.
Okay. That's true. I can see that.
Oh wow. He's sensing us, by the way.
Wow.
So Rick's in Tampa. He's at the Rays game, and of course we mentioned the West Coast Avengers or the Great Lakes Avengers, and of course Rick's fucking sonar radar picks it up somehow that we're talking about it. But yeah,
that's one of Rick's many superpowers. Because my personal theory is Rick is a superhero that we just don't know. Well, he has superpowers. I don't know what he does with them. You know, I mean, you got to know
could be
Rick,
all over the place. I mean,
you know, sometimes good, sometimes bad. But I think part of his superpower is he gets the tingle when someone's talking about the West Coast Avengers or a lesser Avengers group.
Maybe I think he might be trying to form the St. Pete Avengers.
Oh God, look, I'm in, Rick. I'm in. I want to be on the St. Pete Avengers. I'm there. I'll move to St. Petersburg to be an Avenger.
So yeah, and that's where the two plots are tied together is through Intelligentsia and that whole thing up there. So that's and no post. By the way, this episode in episode 5, no post credit. I was loving the fact that they had post credit every show, but now it's like, yeah,
it's kind of, I don't know if they're trolling us, right? They want to make us wait. I always look.
I always do. There's no way I can't look. Every Marvel property, I keep pushing it and fast forwarding until they start turning to like the other languages that they have the credits in. Then I'm like, okay, now we're safe.
And I want to be clear. I always look knowing that someone like yourself or Alex, who's on the group who will watch it before me, will post and say post-credit scene, right? Like, and I still look even when I don't see that, just in case it might be there.
There's a chance, but I kind of want them to come back. I mean, you got the last 3 episodes. Now you had me like in my groove with the whole post-credit scenes, and
I think we're definitely getting a post-credit scene in the last episode, and I think that I'm going to give you my theory right now. It could be completely wrong. But look. But I'm going to say this isn't a Mojo theory. This is a real theory. I'm not just being a jerk and making fun of people here. But I think the post-credit scene we get the leader in the last episode. I think the lead, because I do think the leader is behind trying to get her blood, as we discussed. Especially now that we know he's in a New World Order. Intelligentsia has been set up. I think that post-credit scene from the last episode of this show sets up leader and maybe even New World Order. That's my theory.
Okay. I like that. And one other thing I wanted to mention with this episode was I found this strange because we talked about the CGI regarding when she's in She-Hulk form. For me, I kind of noticed that when she was outdoors and stuff like that, in like daytime or for whatever reason it is, I thought the CGI when she was, because my whole knock is when she moves, when she's walking and stuff like, it seems like it's a little just not natural. I thought it looked outstanding in this episode. I was like buying it way more. I thought maybe they're cleaning it up as the season's going on or something like that. But I thought it was exceptional this episode.
Yeah, I thought it was too. My thing with the CGI is I think body shots and sort of away shots tend to look good. It's when you get close up that I tend to find off like it's when she moves. And to be honest with you, at times when it's a close up on her face and she's talking, sometimes it's not that it looks terrible. It's not that I'm like, oh my god, I can't watch this. But every now and then, like her mouth or she has a facial feature that just doesn't seem realistic, and I'm like, that's a CGI. But having said that, like, I don't know, it's such a small amount of times. It's just that I think I've become so used to CGI looking completely and utterly 100% flawless, but I'm also not used to watching people try to do this where they are creating a character completely from CGI based on another character that stars in the show. You know what I mean? Like, because the Hulk, it's tough. The Hulk in the movies, he resembles Bruce Banner in the sense that sometimes he's got grayish hair if it's Mark Ruffalo or whatever, right? But like the Hulk is just a or Abomination or whatever. They don't really look like their human counterparts. They're just rendered CGI masses, right? But they're trying to do something specific here and something that I don't think that has been done a lot, where they have a lot of practice at it, where they're trying to give you this show where she exists and she is not just a blob massive CGI, that she is the actual character you're following, and this is who you have to really get yourself behind. And I think that to execute CGI to make facial expressions and movements of humanistic creatures like She-Hulk, because She-Hulk's not an animal. If She-Hulk wasn't green, she'd be a bodybuilder.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, that's it. And so I think because she's so humanistic and more humanistic than they try to do prolonged CGI, there are these little bubbles and flubs. But I'm gonna say this, knowing MCU, once she appears in more things and once they use her more, they'll get that shit under control, and that will not be a problem anymore.
Yeah, no, I agree. Whenever, because we're going to see her in the movies, she'll probably be in Avengers: Secret Wars or the Kang Dynasty and stuff like that. Because that just seems to be they want to bring these characters that are introduced in the Disney Plus shows into the MCU, because they want the MCU to be fluent back and forth and stuff like that. Whenever we see her appear in whatever movie is going to be her debut, it'll be spot on, perfect. They've already worked it out. She'll be a member of the Avengers and stuff, and or maybe she even pops up in Captain America: New World Order if the leader's involved. I don't know.
She might. I mean, that's the thing. They open up so many avenues, and I have to admit that the MCU has found a way around giving us constant origin movies, right? Like, and I like it. I'm here for it, because how many times we got to see the Waynes be murdered and the pearls break? It's like. We don't need, and someone like Moon Knight or She-Hulk or Captain Marvel. It's like I actually would rather have seen their origin play out the way it did, because in a movie it wouldn't have been as rich, it would have been rushed, and then it would have just been setting up for the sequel to where we get to the real adventure. And I find that doing this in a movie, you can do the first episode as this is your origin, and now we can give you a real story outside of the origin with this character and then transition to the movie. So I know a lot of people don't like having to watch like the people who hate the show because of all the different reasons. They keep watching it because they have to if they want to watch the next thing. And I think that's part of what pisses them off. But it's like so people like that don't like it. But to be honest, I think it's a better way of storytelling here, because we get the origin out of the way. We get a fun story with the origin, and then we get to see them in a movie where they get to do some top-notch things. And I applaud the MCU for figuring out a way around the constant origin story movie.
Yeah, because it just seems like it's person is there. They're not like they're good at heart, but like maybe they don't have the whole package. They get into an accident, they get superpowers, and now they got a costume, and now they're fighting. But
right.
There's a lot more to that. There's a lot more to these characters and these heroes that we need to have over time to keep this interesting as well. Because otherwise it'll just be like just the basic formula. Which I do think there are some people who are like, oh, it's comic book formula, but if you really watch it, it's not. There's no really formula to a lot of these things. They've changed it up and turned it on its head a bunch of times. And that's why it keeps us coming back, because it's always something fresh.
Exactly. They're always trying to reinvent, and sometimes it works better than others. I mean, I don't think any of us are standing here saying every MCU movie is the greatest thing ever made. But when they're able to reinvent and they hit it out of the park, it's fantastic. And when they're not, it's okay.
Still entertaining.
It's still entertaining. Like, so I don't know. That's I guess I'm just saying I appreciate the way they're trying to reformat things, and I specifically, to bring it back to She-Hulk, appreciate what they've done with this show, and I'm really excited to see where She-Hulk winds up fitting in the larger scale of things going forward.
Yeah, exactly. And one brief thing I wanted to mention before we wrap it up was when she's drunk, when Jen is drunk at the wedding, she does try to call Bruce and catch up with him. And she mentioned she hasn't heard from him, but we know Bruce is on his way to Sakaar and stuff like that and whatever's there, so they're not forgetting that. And it's still keeping me like anticipating what the hell is going to be next for Bruce Banner for the Incredible Hulk. So they're not forgetting about it. I think it was just a little quick reminder. And their relationship is fun because like the way they see each other, they call each other names and playful stuff and things like that. I imagine they had a great kid relationship and stuff like that growing up. He probably picked on her or whatever.
It's what I imagine it would feel like if you grew up in a healthy, loving household and family, and you had siblings and cousins and stuff, and you become adults and you still have that healthy, antagonistic, playful relationship. That's that's how I imagine it feels. That is how it feels. What their relationship is. So it seems real to me.
No, it's fun, and I hope they just continue to explore that moving forward. So, all right. Well, that pretty much wraps it up for this week's episode. Again, if you like what you heard this week, go ahead if you're joining us on Facebook, hit subscribe. Join the Granny's Peach Tea Facebook group as well. Got a bunch of stuff that doesn't make the show, that we talk about on a daily basis. So do that. Also, join Pop Culture Pros group as well, because that's who we're presented by, popculturepros.com. If you're joining us on YouTube, hit subscribe to Pop Culture Pros. Got tons of different types of fun. Whatever you're looking for in pop culture, it's on there. Twitter, @Pop Culture Pros, and follow that as well. And wherever you find your podcast, subscribe to Pop Culture Pros. We will be back next week talking about She-Hulk, Attorney at Law, Episode 7. We'll be talking about Episode 5 of Stargirl. And I know we had mentioned it last week, but yes, we will get around to the rare animated MCU film. Because they only did like less than a handful of these. But they did Planet Hulk.
Yeah, there's not a lot of them, and we're gonna do Planet Hulk. We're gonna do it this week, but shorter show. We have to. It's a Sunday, man. Weddings happen. But I'm excited to get into Planet Hulk. I remember liking that when I saw it.
Yeah, no, I remember it being top quality, and a lot of people wondering, like, damn, why isn't Marvel doing more animated stuff? Like, because DC knocks it out of the park with their animated stuff. Marvel just never really. Marvel. It seems like Marvel Studios is going to be doing more animated stuff, but like this is during an era where they had like nothing. It was just like, here's a random Planet Hulk movie. And I remember really liking it. So I'm excited to get a chance to check it out this week. So, all right. Well, we'll see you next week. And peace.